Thank you all. Excellent. Get ready. God is preparing you for something really, really small. But it's the small things that change the world. So says Christian activist and writer Shane Claiborne. I ran across that quote in another book that I have enjoyed through the years. It's by a disciple. His name is Christian Paya, and he's written a number of books. And the first one in his series was called Banned Questions About the Bible. And then he later wrote one, Banned Questions About Jesus, and Banned Questions About Christians. He grew up in a pretty fundamental church, and when he was a youth, he said he had a Bible thrown at him one day in class because he kept asking all these irrelevant questions, things, no, you can't ask about that. You just have to accept it. But, well, he didn't, that was never good enough. So he asked tons of questions. For example, who gets to decide which laws in the Bible are irrefutable and which are out of date or otherwise ignored, and which are applied only in certain situations? Tons of questions. Tons of questions. We're not Christians because of what we believe about the Bible. We're Christians because we follow Christ. So it's okay to ask questions. 400 years ago, a telescope was invented, and somebody named Galileo Galilei looked up at the stars, and we talked about that last week, there's so many of them, and saw things that nobody had seen before. And the problem was the church kind of controlled science. And the church said, the earth is flat in the center of the universe, and those other things out there don't affect us at all. And Galileo began to see that the world was not as the church had always said. And of course, he got in trouble and had to refute his findings. Because sometimes the church says, God gave you intellect and sense and reason, but you're just going to have to forego their use. Well, enough of that. Let's think about some things today. And I want you to think about 5 things that you could do to make the world a better place. Okay, let's bring about world peace. That's a noble cause. How about we cure all illnesses? Make sure that everybody in the world has abundant food and water. Everybody has a wonderful place to live. There's a chocolate cake that is delicious, but has absolutely no calories. These are all great ideas, but they're kind of idealistic and impossible. We need somebody to give us some firm ideas of what we can do, right? I'd like to introduce you to Kid President.
There are lots of ideas how you can change the world. Some people think you should just complain about it. I won't change the world, they'll just make it bad. Some people think you have lots of money. Make it rain everywhere you go. Have a fun diet. Some people think you have to be really loud and yell a lot. It's like with a bullhorn shouting, hey, you, get my way right now. Other people choose to make fun of everything. That's dumb, everyone's dumb. It's easy to make fun of stuff, but it's cooler to hate stuff. Some people think changing the world can only be done by the smartest person. going to change the world.
It's impossible to change the world.
Well, you can see why they could think that. Living in a world with kids who are hungry, people who are homeless, families who aren't happy. I'm just trying to figure it out like everybody else, man. I do know this though. Next time you feel overwhelmed or totally alone, remember this. Things don't have to be the way they are. The world is changed by ordinary people. Little people living out big love. And that's what gives the world a reason to dance.
Well, Kid President has inspired me to think about what I could do to change the world. One of the things that I would want to do is like never harm a child, but also to make sure the children aren't being harmed. And even in terms of how as a church we do programs for kids and youth, that we don't set up things that happen that result in bad behavior or unfortunate circumstances. I think everybody should find an instrument to play and a place to sing. Now, maybe that needs to be for you in a very small, private place. Yeah, the shower. But it's a good thing to sing. And, you know, maybe playing an instrument would involve pressing a button on something that would actually play music. But in a way, you're kind of playing an instrument and you can sing along. I think that's important. I think everybody needs to find somebody that will truly listen to them. When you have a conversation, they're tuned in to you, not what they're going to say next. And if you think that's a good idea, maybe you could be that person for somebody else. I think that we need to keep up with people. You know, sometimes we're friends, we work together, go to school together, and then situation changes. Don't see that person as often. But, you know, if that was a viable relationship, you can keep that going by phone call or even a letter of all things. Maybe more than just something on Facebook. But, you know, to have an interaction. But somebody's got to take the initiative to do that. And most people won't. And I think, for me, the last thing was, don't let the fact that you can't live perfectly keep you trying to follow Jesus with enthusiasm. No, it's not like, you know, I know I can't climb Mount Everest. But I can climb Driscoll Mountain. Highest point in Louisiana. 588 feet, you know. That's possible. And the possibilities of following Jesus do not need to be ruled out for the fact that I can't do everything really well. And I can't love everybody the way I would want to. Does anything come in mind for you? I mean, what you would do? In Matthew, Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It's the smallest of all the seeds, but when it has grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make a nest in its branches. And he told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed in with 3 measures of flour until all of it was leavened. Maybe the mustard seed isn't actually the smallest of seeds, but it is pretty tiny, and it does make a plant. And yeast is a little packet that you buy, but it can rise a lot of bread. And this woman mixed 3 measures of flour. I mean, that's going to feed the whole town. That's a lot of flour. Just a little bit of yeast will leaven all of that. Jesus' point was encouraging people. Just a little bit has a huge effect. Back to that book. Banned questions about the Bible, about Christians, about Jesus. A number of people responded to these questions, how they would answer them. And most of them are pretty young. And there was a question for each of them in the book. What are the 5 things that you would do to change the world? A variety of stuff. Some was just simply one of the things was they pray. Or, they would consume less. Or they would try to smile. A lot of people kind of had some of the similar ideas, and I found 5 points. And all of them are reflective of what Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. Let it start with you. First point, simplify your life, reduce consumption, and know where the things that you buy come from. Some of our clothing, our consumer goods, electronic goods, are produced in factories of slave labor conditions. Some things are made by children. And maybe buying the cheapest blouse or shirt or pair of shoes is not really that great an idea. If we can, buy reputable things that we know are companies that use proper labor to make them. Second thing, get out of your comfort zone. Read a book on a subject. Read a book, that's something. You know nothing about, or volunteer, or learn from a different culture, or give away more of your time or money, or build a relationship with a person from a generation different than yours. Hey, we can, once a month, well, we can't in July, but on the first Thursday night of the month, the Highland Dinner happens. And Kings Highway, at the first Thursday night of the month, is one of the sponsors. And people come and they serve the food, and they sit at the table and get acquainted with the people that come there to get that meal. What time is it? Be there 5:30. But not this next time, because it's July 4th. Number 3, seek some silence and listen for what God might be urging you to do. And if you find that out, find some people who will hold you accountable to move closer to God. Number 4, each day you will likely encounter someone who is discouraged, sad, afraid, or in pain. Practice hospitality. Follow up with people in need or crisis. Smile. Every day, we'll probably, if we're, out about, or we answer the phone, something's going to happen that's going to frustrate us. It's another telemarketer calling, or somebody is inefficient at the store in line, But, we don't have to take that frustration out on innocent people. Treat everyone you meet as the image of God. And be humble about God and the Bible and basically everything else. A 20th century Jewish philosopher, Abraham Herschel, said, "There is no proof of God, only witnesses." And guess who some of those witnesses are? Yeah. My wife and I are members of a church in Northeast Oklahoma. And we've been there about 9 years. And we got acquainted with quite a few people. It's a lot of retired people and a lot of people that weekend at the lake. And then once in a while, you know, a bunch of family members show up for an event or whatever. So we, you know, have met a lot of folks. And then there's a family that was in the church at one time named Ham. And one of the daughters is a school principal. Well, I think she's retired now. But anyway, just, you know, nice lady. And then they asked her to give the sermon on Sunday. And she told her experience at school in Tulsa that was pretty darn amazing. It was a school with an old facility, low morale, terrible test scores, high rate of poverty, and she was assigned there, and it was like, God, what am I supposed to do? And she began, on the very first day, doing two things. Is to take every child seriously and to treat everybody with kindness. And it was a tough go. There was hardly any parental support for the school at that time, and they had borrowed, and just the materials were lousy, and anyway. So she just began treating everybody with kindness and taking the children seriously when they talked about things. And one little step at a time, she began to get the trust of the community. And the faculty began to respond, and after a couple of years, people from the community were coming in and said, what do you need? And they developed a whole lot of programs. They had clothing for kids that didn't have anything, and a food pantry. They had a community garden. And eventually, the test scores improved so much and the attendance at school improved that they built a new school. And this very ordinary lady told the story of how this happened, and she was just kind of in awe of how God had been able to work through her just by doing really simple things. There's always pockets of mercy and justice. And one act of kindness kind of ripples out. A few years ago, I read a story about a guy that was doing half marathons, I think, and I've lost some of the details, but he started out one day realizing he was in really bad shape, and so he got up off his couch, and he ran as far as he could, and he made it to the sidewalk. And he came back inside, and he was out of breath, and his chest was tight, and then the next day, he did it again, and he got to the neighbor's yard. And then it was half a block. And then it was several blocks. And then it began to be miles. And it just started with one little thing. The guy that invented the term cyberspace said the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. I think God's presence is available in subtle and glorious ways. Do you have 5 things that you'd like to do to change the world? I mean, or do you have one thing that you'd like to do to change the world? Or do you have one thing you want to do? Whatever it is, you have the rest of your life to work that out. Well, you've got to start. And every one of us, in a little while, we're going to get out of the pew. And we're going to do something. Maybe just as small as a mustard seed. Just a little thing.